So, good evening, everyone. And this is the last of our lives for season 4 of Pure Talk, season 3 of Art 360. It's been a journey. I saw everything come up tonight saying this event started 4 months ago. It was like shocking. I was like, wow, I've been doing this for 4 months. It's too much. But this is the last live talk with Rachel this evening, and then I have one more talk that will be pre-recorded, so you'll only be able to see that when it's released on YouTube, and that's with a lady called Tiffany, and that's next week, and we're going to be talking about NFTs. Don't even go there. I don't even know what. I mean, I've tried to work out what they are, but she seems to have mastered it, so I'm going to talk to her about that. So this evening, I'm absolutely delighted. I mean, a lovely one to finish with, I have to be honest. Rachael Perrin, who is the co-founder of Soundcastle, based in our very own Hastings, which is lovely. Come all big circle. We've gone all over the world with these talks, and we've come all completely full circle back to Hastings, which is really lovely. Welcome, Rachael.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. And you have the lovely Basma working with you, and I did my master's degree with Basma at Brighton Uni. So yeah, Soundcastle's now much part of my family now.
That's so nice. It kind of infiltrates.
Yeah, it's part of my family as well. So yeah, anyone watching tonight, if you've got some questions as we proceed, can you put them in the ask a question area at the bottom so that we don't miss anything? If people pop things in the sidebar, sometimes I miss them. If you're watching us over on Facebook Live, because we're streaming live now into Facebook Pure Arts Group Facebook page and into the Hungry Artist. If you're over there and you've got questions, pop them in the question and we'll come back later and have a look at them and try and give you the answers as best we can. If you're watching this on catch up, at the end of this video, all the contact details for myself and Rachel will be there. So if you need to ask us any questions, you can just email us. And in the comments below, there'll be our contact details as well. So hopefully we've covered everything. People watching now, people watching over on live stream, and people watching later. Don't want to miss anyone out. So, Rachel, really lovely to chat to you. And Basma's been telling me all about Soundcastle, obviously, over the last few months as she's been working with you. And it sounds amazing. It was new to me. I hadn't really come across, because we work mainly in the visual arts, and of course you're more in the music area. I know that you're community music, but you're also very creative centric, aren't you? So could you just introduce Soundcastle and tell us a bit about it?
Of course. So Soundcastle, as you say, is a community music charity. All of our work is about supporting people to use music as a way to feel happier and healthier in their day-to-day lives. And that may be through working with families. We work a lot with families through our Musical Beacons program. And we also work with adults on a journey of mental health recovery through our People's Music program. And then we have a whole stream of work for professional artists and facilitators, supporting other practitioners in the sector to feel well and strong and resilient in their practice too.
So it's very much about, very similar to Pure in the fact that we support the artists in becoming more resilient and growing their business and helping them with their well-being. And you're doing the same, but much more in the music area.
Yeah, absolutely. So our work is really divided between kind of sector support and then live program delivery. And our live programs are very deeply embedded in communities across the South Coast, East London and Bristol as well.
So why those 3 areas?
Because Soundcastle is a very organic family grown business. And so we began Soundcastle in 2011 in London. It was co-founded by myself and 3 wonderful friends and colleagues who I did my master's with. And so we ran the company in London for a few years. And then naturally, as life moves on and people migrate out of the city, we took Soundcastle with us. So it was very organic growth, and it wasn't a strategic business move to franchise out. It was very much where are people's families, where is life taking us next, where are people moving to? And then a really interesting process of how do you then take a concept and ensure it's responsive and reactive and relevant to a new community.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds a wonderful way to grow. Again, there's just so much synergy across the two businesses because, we're very organic in, I live in the southeast, so we started in the southeast, and then, as we get members who are like further afield, we're starting to develop hubs in Birmingham.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And as you say, how do you stay relevant to those places and those people? It's really important
Yeah.
when you're running a business that is about a community.
hmm Yeah, you really can't take a program model and then parachute that to another space. It has to be so slow, and it's taken us years in each of our locations, as kind of satellites in the southeast and in Bristol, to really understand. And actually, what the programs look like in those areas now is so different to where they came from, and it continues to evolve. You wouldn't know from walking into one of those programs that it had evolved from another space. The practice is there, the consistent, and the responsiveness and the energy, and the way the facilitators are trained and supported, but the actual rooms, contexts, kinds of people we work with, rooms and like spaces we work in, it's all completely different.
Yeah, so you've got one co-founder who's based in Bristol. Who's that?
That's Jenni.
Jenni. And so a typical day for Jenni, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh. A typical day for Jenni. I'm not sure she's ever had a typical day. she's,
Who
she's
has?
probably the least routine of our team, I would say. So Jenni, I mean, Soundcastle is a beautiful juggle of many small children, and Jenni is really modelling the juggle right now very well. So her partner is a theatre maker and filmmaker. Jenni is obviously part of the Soundcastle team and a musician. They have two young children. Um, that it's just a beautiful juggle. So a day for Jenni is unpredictable, but the focus of her Soundcastle practice is really around growing our partnership with Bristol Beacon, which is the big arts centre, music centre in Bristol. Um, and she's just begun delivering musical beacons, which is our family work there, supporting families with disabled or neurodiverse young children. After about a year's worth of consultation, loads of digital consultation during lockdown, she had a lockdown baby. There
Oh,
was many things
wow.
happened during that time for Jenni, but we established Soundcastle Bristol alongside everything. And now we've gone through this big period of consultation. Who needs musical beacons in Bristol? What does it look like? So yeah, so that may be anything for Jenni, from responding to emails around where logos should go on flyers for the program, to thinking about what are the actual creative needs of a young person entering that space, to making a social story about that, to looking at funding applications to support the development, to speaking to partners. It's a really varied and diverse role to be a founder and director at Soundcastle. It's an artist-led organization, so we're here, there, and everywhere, and we're doing the work as well as running the business.
But isn't that amazing that and I know I developed Pure, I launched in 2009, and I had my third child in 2007, so he was under 2, and that was my third child. So, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You're speaking from a position of strength to help these people because you've been there. You know what they're dealing with. I know how difficult and what the challenges are because I've lived them, firsthand myself. That's amazing that Jenni's doing that with little children. And you said neurodiverse as well, dealing with youngsters who are neurodiverse. Music is such an amazing thing. The creative arts are such an amazing opening for children with those diverse needs.
Yeah. And all of our musical beacons practice is around parent or carer and child interaction. So it's all about creating safe spaces where families can make music together. So a lot of it is about that communication, that connection, finding spaces where siblings that might not have had spaces where they could communicate effectively before can come together and play and find a new element to their relationship, a new dynamic in their family.
Because otherwise not only the neurodiverse child is isolated, but equally their siblings are isolated, aren't they? Yeah. So everyone's like living in their like little parallel universes, but no one's kind of communicating across those universes. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
So Jenni sounds like she's got her hands full down there.
She does a beautiful job over in the southwest, and is building a lovely team over there as well. So she's not totally on her own.
Okay, and then we've got, who have we got in London, in East London, you said?
East London, we've got Gail.
Gail. How's Gail doing? Does
She's
Gail have a typical day?
she's great. I mean, no, I would say no. Gail's also on the juggle with small humans, one of whom is off school today. So we're on the
Oh.
real juggle with everybody at the moment.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Gail. So what does Gail's day look like? She, similarly to Jenni, she's also very, very involved in the practice. So she's
mm,
building um, the London work. So we've been running obviously for the longest in London since
mm.
2011. But because the work is so responsive and reactive, in some ways it's regenerating. So she can't sit back and relax that it's established and rolling. Like every interaction is new, every community is new. We're working with really brilliant partners with Peabody Housing Association, and we've got a really nice, interesting group of partners now that we're building the work with in East London. So Gail's very much at the forefront of those conversations, and is also just starting to build uh, partnerships with mental health partners for our people's music work, which is supporting adults on a journey of mental health recovery. So we're just starting to expand that work from the southeast into London, which is, so it's quite nice now. The work is flowing city to
Mm.
city.
Yeah, that's lovely to see that that was where it all started,
Hmm.
and actually now what you're doing in the southeast is actually feeding into that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So coming full circle, what does a typical day look like for Rachel now she's running the one in the
Oh my
southeast?
gosh. Well, do you know, I shouldn't really take credit for the Southeast because we have an amazing one. I have another colleague, Hannah, who is our amazing Southeast director. Um, and she actually runs all of the work here. So my work is a lot more behind the scenes now. So I should probably tell you about Hannah's first, as that makes
Yeah,
most sense in terms of
yeah.
the little triangle of practice. So Hannah, again, I would say doesn't have a typical day. Um, she is leading on all of the Southeast practice. And here it's been very different. So Musical Beacons has often been very open to the community, kind of open doors, bringing in all kinds of different voices. In London, it's very much people with English as a second language or people that were new to these communities. In the Southeast, it's very different. So we work here with partners. We work with safe houses for young women who've experienced domestic abuse or homelessness and are either pregnant or have babies under 2 years old. So it's a very, very intimate, very closed, supported housing settings that we work in. So it's a lot less visible, the work here,
Mm,
deeply important, but a lot less open than the London work. So Hannah's really doing beautiful work with the Southeast team, with her partner Fernando and another colleague Shona. They're doing wonderful work building that, expanding. We're now working in houses in St Leonard's and New Haven and Eastbourne, and hoping that will keep kind of travelling along the coast a little way. And she
mm,
also leads on our mental health work. So this is where the People's Music Collective was first established. So Worthing is the home of the People's Music Collective, who are an amazing performing ensemble of a group of adults with lived experience of mental health challenges that have been through plenty of Soundcastle programs and are now their own performing ensemble over in Worthing. They released their first EP during lockdown.
Oh
We have a
wow.
documentary film about them and the making of that on our channels that you can see as well if you're interested in.
We'll put a link to the film, so anyone who's
Thank
watching, we'll put a
you.
link to the film in when we upload this onto YouTube, so that we can, so people can access that as
Thank
well.
you. That would be great.
Mm,
Maybe made by a brilliant local filmmaker, Dave Thomas. I should
mm.
give a shout out to because he's doing
Well done,
great work. Thanks,
Dave.
Dave. Yeah, so
That's that.
Hannah's unpredictable but fabulous, traveling up and down the coast, making all those things
Mm.
happen, and also a big part.
Quietly, you say, quietly behind the
Yeah.
scenes, that because that's a very, you have to be very secure when you're working in those communities, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're very vulnerable.
yeah, really
Mm,
vulnerable.
mm.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in there partners.
Hmm.
You work with a lot of partners. Is that an important part of making Soundcastle viable?
Yeah.
The partners, the people you team up with, because it's a
Yeah.
charity at the end
Hmm.
of the day. So you're not doing work to make a profit. You're actually doing work that is needed and essential. But how do you fund that?
How do we fund it? It's a really mixed bag. So
Mm,
we have grant funding. So a lot of our funding comes to arts funders. So people like the Arts Council, the kind of who've got youth music, that kind of the big arts
Mm,
funders that support our work and have supported us for years, which is amazing. And there's a
mm,
whole world of community funders that we're moving into. I'm trying to think, there's
mm.
some new ones, but I don't think we've announced all of them yet. And then
No,
some of them we have to sign 1,000 things
don't
before we can know.
don't reveal.
There's some really exciting community funders, but we have funding, and we have previously had funding from the lottery and people like that.
Mm,
And then also quite a lot of smaller trusts and foundations. So we have the national funders, national community funders, national arts funders. Then we have the mainly regional community funders that want to
mm.
support things very locally and very regionalized. And then we have, I guess that's the funded area of our work. We have an individual giving program where people can support Soundcastle with like a rolling donation. So that brings
Okay.
in some
And how do
money that
people
way.
do that? Is that on your website?
Yes, that's on our website, and I can send links to that if anybody's
Mm.
feeling
Oh,
inspired
Basma,
to
yeah, Basma's
support the
just
cause.
popped up the People's Music Collective film, so we'll pop that on. That's now nicely in the corner there. At the bottom of the screen, for people who are watching, not on Facebook or on YouTube, sadly, but don't worry about that because we'll put the link in the comments. You can see a little green box and it says Soundcastle, and if you click on that, that will take you through to the Soundcastle website. And actually, when you go through there, you'll see on the top right-hand side, there is a yellow button that says support us. So is that
Nice.
where you would direct people to if they want to
Yeah,
support you? Yeah,
that's
and I think,
perfect. Thank
and
you.
an amazing cause, as you say, you're doing things that are hidden. So it's
Mm.
very difficult to publicize and generate income for things that actually you don't want to publicize.
Exactly. And also, we're an asset-based organization. So everything we say, we want everybody involved in the charity in any form to be proud of. So we really
Mm,
aren't leading with sob stories. Like, we're not interested, and we're
mm,
not going that. Whilst the people we work with a lot of the time are at hugely vulnerable points in their lives,
mm,
we do everything we can to approach the storytelling from a place of positive change and transition, which is great and really important and essential to our values. But in terms of charity giving, isn't always what people are used to. So we
yeah,
have a really interesting, very passionate, very dedicated group of people that are our individual givers, but it's not the easiest thing to communicate when you don't want to go down the deficit route of how
yeah,
terrible things have been, can be, which we could
yeah,
do, but
no,
it doesn't fit with the way that we work in the room, and we want to
no.
represent that.
I think you bring a very positive energy,
Thanks.
and that's really important, isn't it? And that you want to lead by example and show
Hmm.
that you can make a difference and change the outcome
Yeah.
for yourself.
Hmm.
So then, as you say, going down the hardship
Hmm.
route of trying to get funding doesn't correlate with that ethos. No.
No.
No, so it's important that we shout that out and say, people, if you're looking for someone to support, then, this is an incredibly worthwhile charity that, all small charities need your support. Everybody's, there's lots and lots of small charities out there. It's all well and good seeing all the big ones, isn't it? I have
Hmm.
to be honest, I have spent today walking another 7 miles in my training walk because I'm doing the Seven Sisters hike
Nice.
in June to raise money for Macmillan,
Hmm.
and I think things like that are great.
Hmm.
Collective energies put towards raising money
Hmm.
at one time, but it's very positive because it's helping my mental and physical health as well.
Yeah.
But it's shattering all this. I can't lie. You have to walk 7 miles every day. It's really shattering. But yeah, so. Um, if you are thinking of looking for a small local charity that you'd like to, well, I mean, you're not that local, as you say, you've got Bristol and you've got London as well. But, people who are watching this, if you're in the Southeast and you're in Hastings, then, if you're looking for a charity locally to you, then this is a great one. And as I say, top right-hand corner, yellow button, support us and make a regular donation. There's nothing better than that, is there, when people make a regular commitment
It's
to you?
the power of the small regular donations is just, it's a game changer. It's so liberating
Mm,
because it enables us. The big grant funding is amazing, but it comes with so many reporting requirements. It takes a huge amount of time.
mm,
Whereas when we have donations, it's so liberating because we can just, it's direct impact. Like every time, it's just
mm,
direct without any
mm.
reporting. Just lovely Basma doing a beautiful mail out to say thank you.
Yeah, I know. Good girl she is. As I say, we did our masters together, and she's fabulous. And she's helped me out on loads of events as well. She looks lovely. Well done, Basma. You look gorgeous as well. Very encouraging. But yeah, as you say, that's the thing, isn't it? This big national funding. I know that myself because as well as running Pure, I also do quite a lot of Arts Council funded community projects. It comes, and I'm always the evaluator. I'm always the one doing the evaluation. The reporting is hard yards, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. If it gets the money to the right people, then we're all in for doing that, aren't we? But they do make you jump through a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
To get that. So yeah, that, as you say, that regular donation is a wonderful thing, and it's very liberating, and we thank everyone who considers doing that kind of regular donation. Thank you very much. And the other thing you said that I picked up on was the Soundcastle program. So how would someone access those programs? They just happen upon this film and they go, oh, I've got mental health issues, or I know someone who'd really benefit from that. How would they access them?
So a lot of the work is referral based or very regional, but it's definitely worth if you're in one of those areas and a program's of interest, then do go onto the website. Then each of the programs has its own kind of micro website off of that, where you can see more information about what's happening in your area. At the moment, we're completely oversubscribed in Bristol, which is also beautiful but also heartbreaking that there's all these families that we can't reach because we're funding limited. But it's also a good case to bring in more funding. So again, trying to see that from a positive place. The work in the southeast is all in partnership with Sussex Recovery College. So people tend to come through the Recovery College onto the programs. And then
I've never heard of that. Sussex Recovery
College. Yeah, so they support
that.
people on a journey of mental health recovery. They have an incredible program of events and courses and workshops that you can do. All manner of things, from crafts to kind of creative things, all through to kind of day-to-day well-being practices. Really interesting program.
I should go and look them up.
Yeah, look them up.
I have not heard of those before. Sussex Coast College, I've heard of all of these, but not Sussex Recovery College.
Yeah, so you can get
that's
referred.
Amazing.
Yeah, people get referred through their GP, or you can also self-refer and have access to their programs.
And what about London?
And London is open access, but again, very, very regional. So the London work is really there to target the community that live in and around those buildings. So it's quite different. Like, when we define isolation, like you were saying, in Bristol, families might travel across the city because they're isolated because of their child's disability and their lack of access to very local opportunities. Whereas in London, it's very different. Often the isolation can be people living kind of 10 foot away from each other, but not having the language or the means or the confidence to communicate within a building or an estate or a very immediate community. So those programs are open, and we're constantly exploring exactly where they best land to serve those communities, but they're in and around Waltham Forest and Leytonstone, and there's more information on the London site about that, or there will be soon updates. They're about to do some more work in the park, in one of the parks in East London as well, to try and do some more COVID safe outside creative work with young children, where people feel a bit more confident to play and explore.
That sounds wonderful. As you say, I think that's the thing that I'm really hearing as you're talking about this, is about how appropriate the context is. So, because isolation is a perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
So for you, I might interpret isolation as being like stuck in my house, but actually that'd be quite a different thing for everybody, depending on their particular needs. And on your website, you say you do a lot of research, and you're a research-led organisation. How does that look? And is it on isolation, really, the research, how to deal with isolation?
It really varies. We have a lot of different research partnerships. So we work with researchers from different universities or programs. Often it's people that have are already working in the community music field, so we're kind of researchers interested in our space. Sometimes that's then them writing us into their PhD or their research, and other times it's us commissioning small pieces of research directly on the programs.
Mm.
We speak about research a lot because it helps us grow and it challenges us. It's quite different to evaluation helps us grow, but we run our own evaluations to our own framework. So we're always learning and always growing, but you can't avoid bias or that kind of context of having created and lived the work. Whereas research is so interesting because it's never there to meet a specific output or outcome or prove anything other than what a researcher experiences or sees from the practice. So it's an incredibly useful space for us to have researchers. We did quite a lot with researchers through lockdown, sitting in on Zoom calls and then helping us look at what had happened and how it had happened from a very from an outside of Soundcastle perspective, which has been super interesting to see and read what's coming back from that.
And will that influence you, how you develop the business? It's
Yeah,
not a business, the charity going
always.
forward.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
It's just so incredibly useful. I mean, all the voices within the organization, all the community members, all the team members, everything influences all the time. And to have some external come in with the investment to spend the time with us and to sit with us and to start to trust us. And even things like to question how they put a form to our communities and breaking down academic language, because we make sure that if someone's coming in as a researcher, our community members don't feel judged or watched or observed. Like there has to be that buy-in, that it's a mutual process where we're all learning. So it takes a lot. We don't have observers in our sessions. We only have people that are actively engaged creatively. So it's quite a big ask to a researcher to come into a Soundcastle space, and they do. They really do show up in a very interesting and creative way.
I love that it's, informing PhDs that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Because, we've just been through the most incredible period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and we still are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not stopping, is it? We've still got COVID, and now we've got a war. This is having an impact on everyone's day-to-day lives with fuel prices and everything. And people who are vulnerable will be more triggered by that than, I mean, we're all triggered by it, but they'll be more triggered than us. And so having people actually researching this in the moment is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And as you say, we all have bias. Of course we do. We have evolutionary bias as well as, our own lived bias.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to step aside. And as someone who's done a master's and who's, considering doing a PhD, I know I had to question myself on that a lot. About stepping aside that bias. So reflecting on that then, what are your big aspirations for the charity as you move forward? Do you have some big goals that you'd like to see fulfilled? Do you have that dream?
We do. I mean, again, that evolves all the time, and you could probably interview each of us and it will be slightly different. I wouldn't say there's a corporate line on when we're going. But it feels like at the moment, the big dream is that we keep running these really embedded, deeply rooted community programs, and they expand in a meaningful and responsive way within our regions and beyond. And that the ripple effect of those is that more and more arts practitioners are challenging the way they work, are feeling supported in the way they work, are coming to train with Soundcastle, are coming to look at how we consider community practice, because it is quite different, the way that we work. So I think there's the community programs growing, but really for us, I think a huge dream is that it becomes more and more identified within the community arts sector as an approach, and as a quite different approach that people start to look at. And from an organizational point of view, that's other arts and cultural organizations coming to Soundcastle, because we do quite a lot of consultancy work of going into mainly larger scale organizations, helping them to think differently and challenge their perspectives on their inclusion or their creative practice. So more of that. I think the more the Soundcastle message can get out there in terms of participant, community member led. So our term for participant is community member, just to clarify that for anyone. The more community member led work there is out there, and the more the artist's well-being is recognized as valid and important, the better. I think that's the real dream, that the Soundcastle way of being and thinking becomes nationally recognized and embedded.
That's so exciting, isn't it? So you effectively become the hub where you'll train people into your ethos. So they go out and they just spread that way of being and teaching and training out in the
Yeah.
community.
I
So
think sorry.
yeah, so Soundcastle becomes a recognised name.
Exactly. And we have an online community of over 300 community musicians and the practitioners. And I think what they value from speaking to lots of members is that it's not about learning like the Soundcastle method. There isn't a methodology. It's about deepening their own understanding of their own practice. So we're a coaching-led organization. We're all coaches and mentors, higher ed teachers. Like, we're deeply embedded and invested in reflective practice. So no one's going to come on a Soundcastle training program and then go into a school saying, I can teach in Soundcastle style. Like, it's very much about, if they've been through it, it should deepen their confidence, their sense of community, their sense of well-being, to a point that they're better in their own practice, not better in ours.
Yeah, it's an ethos, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an ethos. And yeah, I totally get that, because that's exactly the same. People ring me up and they'll go, I want to go on the Pure program. And I'm like, well, okay. But it's just helping you find your own way.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we do. We don't, there's no one size fits all. I think that's really important within the creative arts. And that's a very important message for you to get across, that so creative practitioners can join you as a member.
Yes.
Can join Soundcastle as a member. Okay, and how do they do that? Is that on the website as well?
Yeah, that's all there. It's called the Soundcastle community. It's free. It's important to say that there's no upsell in Soundcastle. Like,
No,
the access to come onto any of our programs is free. Musical Beacons, People's Music, Soundcastle community, they're all free programs and free communities to become a part of. So they can, I'll send you a link, but people can join that.
That sounds like an amazing thing for people who are wanting to work in community music and in the community generally, to become a member and to understand. And then, there may not be a membership fee, but maybe they'd like to give back by supporting you.
Always a pleasure when they do.
Yeah,
we've had some lovely donations from our community members, and that's special. And occasionally we'll run pop-up events or courses and people donate, and that feels really special. But we launched the Soundcastle community in July 2020 as a response to the isolation of our sector, and it needed to be accessible, and it still does. The situation hasn't got easier for a lot of practitioners, so we continue to advocate for that and to try and seek funding to grow it and scale it and continue.
Basma has dropped in the sidebar here. Anyone can join the Soundcast community here, and here's the link. And again, if you're watching this on Catch Up, not on Crowdcast, we will pop the links in the comments, so you'll be able to join. And that is an amazing opportunity for them to understand how you work and understand the ethos behind what you do, the essence of what you do, and then to reinterpret it in their own way, because that's the benefit, isn't it? With creatives, we're all unique individuals. We all put our own kind of twist on it. Yeah,
we say a lot, we don't produce guidebooks and how-tos, and that they can often get in the way. And I think it's hard. We work with a lot of emerging practitioners, and I remember it, you're so desperate for what are my 1, 2, 3 of workshop leading skills, and what are the games, and what are the songs, and we really dig deep with people to say, like, just strip it away, and it's okay. Like, take a risk. It's safe to take a risk and to find your creative voice and your creative play. And that's where you're authentic, and that's where community members will mirror that authenticity with their own truth. And without that, you're just in a state of kind of playground back and forth. We've got to dig a little bit deeper.
I think the biggest learning I made when I started teaching was not to overplan, but to let the people who I was teaching kind of influence what I was going to teach in that moment. And that's scary, isn't it? It's scary to go in and go, I've got no preparation. I'm just going to feed off of what you send me. But they were amazing. When you do that, that's the best moments for everybody. Because it's exciting. You just don't know what's going to come up, do you?
Never. You just have to have enough confidence in your own creative capacity to hold whatever does come up. And that's what we spend so much time supporting ourselves and our teams and our practitioners and other practitioners to have, is that it's a self-belief and the foundation under that you can always hold whatever comes. It will be okay. It's a lot more, I feel like so often I speak to drama and theatre practitioners who completely resonate with our approach, and it doesn't sound innovative at all, and they're just like, well, yes, that's theatre practice. But musicians like, oh, it's so many musicians. Really? No, put down the plan. And it's how we're taught. The music teachers are taught you have to go in to work in so many music services or schools. You
Mm.
have to have a scheme of work, and it's okay. And there's value in that for sure, but it's not community music.
No, it's not leading from your heart either. It's not teaching from your heart. But it takes, as you say, a lot of self-confidence, self-worth
Hmm.
to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
it's wonderful if, like us, you provide the support, the kind of
Hmm.
hammock that they can
Hmm.
learn that in. So yeah, I'd encourage as many people as possible, not just musicians maybe, but any creative practitioners, to consider joining your community, the same as, they join us. It's always about finding your people. Find your
Yeah.
people, find your tribe who
Yeah.
talk your language, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an international community. And so, we have some amazing members. We have an amazing member in New Orleans who comes to events in the middle of the night, her time, because she feels like she's found her tribe, and it's beautiful when she does. And I really feel her energy as she's kind of sleepily coming into a Zoom call. It's special. You find your people. It really matters.
You're so right. I think that's, a massive thing, isn't it, when you find your people? And it doesn't matter where they are on the planet.
No.
Like we've got people from all over the world. We've got someone in Miami and someone in
Mhm.
Barcelona, and I love it when they turn up. So have you been doing a lot of Zooming and over lockdown?
We have. We have
Yeah.
done so much Zooming. Yes, which has been beautiful, and I shouldn't roll my eyes at Zoom. I love it. It's united our whole sector, and we've done wonderful things. And I have tried to find ways to do less Zooming, and continue to find ways to take coaching onto the phone, to move as many meetings as possible to a place where I can be like moving, and the other person can be moving and communicating. But yeah, Zoom across all of our programs. It took a long time to get our community members comfortable online. Um, the People's Music Collective have been meeting in the room for years, but some members of that group didn't have any technology in their homes. And most of them didn't have any instruments in their homes. So it was a lot of back and forth. It was letter writing. It was phone calls. It was WhatsApp groups. It was Zoom tutorials. It was a huge amount went into working with that community of people around, from technical capacity to the kind of creative self-belief to show up online. And then they made an EP in lockdown. So
It's
amazing, all
amazing.
through Zoom. Just so they blow my mind. Just how that happened. And Musical Beacons was on live throughout lockdown in every form, one-to-ones, group sessions, dropping off different kind of accessible bits of kit at different houses around London. So much work in Bristol, all the consultation work, and the community, Soundcastle community, obviously with all the practitioners. We did weekly tea breaks called Community Cuppa. We ran huge interview series, a little bit like this, for different community musicians talking about their journeys. We started Book Club, which is like an interview series that we live stream on YouTube, interviewing community musicians about either their work or work of other researchers. There's been a huge amount of digital practice that I'm really proud of. I just also feel very proud to be able to now step back a little bit from being entirely Zoomy.
I think the thing for me is that there's a legacy there,
Yeah, yeah.
because we've recorded a lot of it, and a
Mhm,
lot of it is there for people to consume at their leisure
mhm.
now.
Yeah.
And we never would have got to do that, if we didn't have our hand forced.
Mhm,
Because like everything we do is coaching and mentoring led. So you want to be out in the fresh air, physically walking, making sure that you're listening deeply to what people
mhm,
have to say. And I was very skeptical in the beginning, I
mhm.
can't lie. That I thought, how's that ever going to work? But actually, it
Yeah,
does. It's
yeah,
amazing.
it
The
does.
energy comes across the screen.
Yeah.
It really does. But like you, I'm trying to now get a balance
Mhm.
between the
It's
two.
important. It's really important.
Mm, mm,
And for the young people and the families, or for everybody we work with, that we've been doing huge consultation to bring us out of lockdowns and out of this phase of the pandemic as well, to understand what supports people to feel safe. And again, that looks so different. For some of our families, that's being in the park. For some of them, it's going to one right before coming back into a group.
mm.
We're just gradually looking at this room spaces, bigger rooms, whatever we can do to make sure that it's always responsive coming out as well as going in. We're not just kind of throwing out all precaution and celebrating the end of something that really hasn't finished.
No, it's not over, people. I think China just went back into another lockdown today, didn't it? So in one province. So let's not say it's never over till it's over. I think that we'll be living this, but I think it's important to make the learning. So what do you think was the biggest learning for you during that period of time?
I think that community will win. Like community won. It won 1,000 times over. We found new communities, new relationships. We reconnected with families that had long since moved on from musical beacons that came back into the fold. We were pushed. We were pushed to translate different things and learn about accessibility digitally. It kind of fast forwarded so much progression and learning for us in order to serve the communities that we support. So I think that was hugely inspiring. The interactions that we saw and were part of, and feeling like a part of a really exciting movement. Like the pandemic had to be, from a Soundcastle perspective, it had to be in some way, a kind of a catalyst for positive change. Otherwise, I don't think any of us could have processed it. We just needed it to be this thing that pushed us in a new world. So I would say that community will always thrive in adversity, and to be able to be a part of that support has been hugely validating.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree that, for me, it was the community centric people will win, not
Hmm.
just, but people.
Yeah.
We're just here. I'm just stunned by our resilience and how we
Hmm.
also come together and support each other in that, level of adversity, and the
Hmm.
resilience that, we've
Yeah.
all grown as a consequence. It's just been incredible. Incredible to be part of it. And the word movement,
Hmm.
I just thought, wow, that is it,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
We were part of a movement,
Yeah.
weren't we? And we
Hmm.
still are part of
Yeah.
a movement, that community, bringing those people who held communities together, whether that was a community of gardeners
Hmm.
who all were on an allotment together, or a book club,
Hmm.
or, however that was previously to the pandemic, and
Hmm.
they all came online. We're part of a movement. And that's just the most amazing legacy
Hmm.
from this, that it's still thriving. And the movement for us is, as you say, international, and it's the same for you. It's
Yeah.
just amazing. Yeah, very similar kind of response, I think,
Yeah.
to yourselves, that I was just so overwhelmed at
Mm.
times in a really good way.
Hmm.
Not overwhelmed in a bad way, but
Yeah.
overwhelmed in a
Yeah.
really good way. It filled me up, that the amount of people that showed up and the amount of people who
Hmm.
cared.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so that's the biggest learning, really.
Mm.
Um, Thank you so much for
Not at all.
sharing.
Thank you.
So amazing to hear. As I say, I knew very little about Sandcastle until Basma arrived with you, and even then, still I
Mhm.
realise now I knew so very little, and now I know a lot more. And it sounds, the work you do is so important,
Thank you. Well, you
so
too.
important. Anyone who works in this space where we
Hmm.
support artists, and artists that need us to be there to
Hmm.
uplift them and to tell them that it's okay, all of this is normal, and we're there, we
Hmm.
got you.
Yeah.
We got you,
Totally agreed.
is so important, isn't it? So no, thank you so much for sharing. In another world, would you, just one final question,
Hmm.
just one final question. You chose to go down the charity route, and we chose to go down the social enterprise,
Hmm.
more the community, but it supports itself.
Yeah.
So we don't go for funding. We don't have any funding.
Yeah.
It's all self-supporting.
Yeah.
Um, the community supports itself, and
Yeah.
you've gone the opposite.
Hmm.
In another world, how do you feel about your decision to go charity as opposed to self-funded?
Um, Really good, but we weren't a charity until last year. This is our first year of being a charity, so it's new still.
Ah,
So there's probably a whole
ah,
nother like discussion to be had around business models and choices. Um, but we weren't self-funded the whole time because our community simply couldn't self-fund.
mm,
Um, so we were still receiving grant funding, but we became a charity during lockdown. That was another of our little lockdown projects, was to form a board and become a charity. But I think for us, it was we've been running for 10 years, and it was exactly the right moment to say, this is the moment to make this shift. Um,
Mm.
for many reasons, I'm really proud of the decision. We resisted it in many ways for a long time, but actually, I think we've now really owned it. But yeah, always happy to talk more about the business side of the business.
Yeah, the business model. That it always intrigues me
Yeah,
because funding is hard.
yeah.
Going down the charity route is not, it's definitely not an easy option.
No, but I think to sustain the growth that we've seen over the past 3 years, it wouldn't be sustainable for us self-funded right now.
Mm,
So whilst we do have multiple revenue streams, and we do sell and we do consultancy and we run training
mm,
programs for organizations,
mm,
to scale the community practice to the extent that we feel is needed and that the demand is there for, we wouldn't be able to. So it is,
mm.
right now it's the route, but who knows? Ask me again in 5 years and who knows? Don't our board are probably listening. Ignore that. Scrap that comment. We'll be a charity forever and always.
Definitely the right decision. Don't know what you're talking about.
They're amazing. We love them. We love them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Board of trustees. I asked, completely out of self-interest because for the first probably 8 years of Pure, it was definitely patron supported.
Yeah.
Business, and I had to make a decision,
Mhm.
and I made that decision about a year and a half before the pandemic
Okay.
to go completely business as opposed to charity. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to commit to making this
Yeah.
work and without funding
Mhm.
because I don't want to jump through the hoops.
Yeah.
And I want to make the decisions based on what the community needs, in my opinion. And again, it's not easy. It's not easy.
There's no route. People are passionate about their direction, but there's no quick win.
It's no perfect solution, definitely not. No perfect solution. And I'm completely 100% committed to my route as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to be all in. You have to be all in, and you have to listen
Yeah.
to people. I'm very curious. I'm always seeking advice, and I'm always seeking people's alternative views because you learn so much
Yeah.
that way.
You do.
Hopefully that's what makes you successful in the route that you've pursued. But yeah, I was fascinating why you decided charity as opposed to self-funded, because I know how difficult it is in the
Yeah.
funding sector. I mean, I've spent hours and hours of my life arguing with funders because you just don't quite fit the tiny little circle that they want you to go through.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating when you know you're doing such good work.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
well, we'll have another conversation about that.
Let's have a panel on it. Get a few people
Yeah,
together. That's
I
always
think that would be such a good idea. Let's have a panel on business models and the pros and cons.
I think
Which
we've
one
done
you chose?
most of them over time. So yeah, I can play devil's advocate and fly the flag in whatever corner is helpful.
Yeah, me too. I think I've done funded projects, done them all. And as I say, there's no right or wrong, and there's no easy. There's definitely no quick or easy win.
No.
You just got to be all in, both feet, and just dig deep, dig in and dig deep with the one you choose, and just go for it.
Agreed.
Thank you so much, Rachael. I just really loved that. I really loved our conversation. Thank you for sharing so much, very generously sharing all of your experiences. And we'll have to come back and have a regroup and a panel discussion.
Round two.
Yeah, and I look forward to bumping into you in Hastings at some point as well with Basma.
Yeah,
We'll have a coffee in the real world.
There's no excuse for us being digital.
No, absolutely not. But we did need to do this digitally so that we could get it on in the can, as they say.
No, here we go.
Thank you so much. And as I say, anyone who's been watching over on Facebook, if you've got some questions, do pop them in the in the comments, and I'll come over and have a look, and we'll do our best to answer them. And if you're watching this on catch up, thank you so much for watching it on catch up. You know where we are. All the details are in the comments below. Thank you, and good night, everyone. That's the last one of the lives. I will be back towards the end of 2022 with season 5 of the Pure Talks. I can't believe that's season 5, and I did 4 seasons in 2 years. Ooh, that was
well done. Oh my gosh.
What
are you doing with the rest of your evening? You should really have a good a good end to your night now.
I think a glass of wine might be called for.
Perfect.
Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you so much, Rachel. It's been absolutely brilliant. I will speak to you all very soon.
Wonderful.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much, Leslie.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.